The 13th Doctor got loads of New Year's specials, but I think it's about time that she managed to celebrate Christmas. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mr. TARDIS, and the 13th Doctor adventures continue with their third story, Lionesses in Winter, written by Lisa McMullen. This is the third in the bi-monthly 13th Doctor adventures, starring Jodie Whittaker and Mandip Gill, and as I mentioned up top, this is kind of a Christmas special, even though it's coming out in November, but let's be honest, in the UK, Christmas starts as soon as Halloween ends. Personally, I like to wait until Bonfire Night, but whatever. So the setting is 1183. We're in the court of King Henry II, played by Kevin Matherin. And this Christmas, he's invited his estranged wife, Queen Eleanor, played by Deborah Baker. The problem being that Eleanor, about 10 years ago, led an uprising against him, so she's been imprisoned, and it's during Christmas that they reunite the family. And you thought your family was complicated. The 13th Doctor and Yaz managed to crash the Christmas festivities, but it turns out that Henry and Eleanor's family troubles run way deeper than they thought. There is a spectre outside of the window, which appears to be one of their deceased children, Prince Philip, played by Amar Duffus. And in his wake, the food starts rotting, the whole ground starts deteriorating, and it's up to the Doctor, Yaz, and King Richard the Lionheart's wife, Alice, played by Dolly Webb, to figure out where Philip has come from and how to send him back, if they can send him back.
That's Prince Philip. That's who helped you out of the maze.
It's not possible.
No, it isn't.
What's he singing? The Coventry Carol.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, that'll be because it hasn't been written yet. What? His carol singing is about 300 years ahead of its time. So he's a time traveller? Or an alien?
Let me in.
Why? What do you want?
Don't!
Sorry I'm late.
Ah, nice trick. How did you do that? Teleport? Space jump? Vortex manipulator?
Hello again, Yaz.
Who are you? That is a great question. Pub quiz tiebreaker right there.
What do you mean? Who is he?
This is our son, Philip.
Eh?
Lionesses in Winter is an interesting story. I think firstly it's trying to depict the dysfunctional family in the court of King Henry II, and yeah, it was very dysfunctional, not just his wife trying to overthrow him, but several of his children as well. And I think the idea of getting this family over for a cordial Christmas and all of the strange drama and all of the, you know, the debate about lineage and who's going to be the next to the throne, I think that's really interesting and funny. But I think this is the type of setting that the 13th Doctor isn't able to necessarily thrive in, because she's trying to throw in different references and her own quirky, socially awkward banter, and I think it's trying to put quirky on top of quirky, and I think that the double measure doesn't quite work here as well as it should. But after about 10 to 15 minutes, I think Lionesses in Winter really does find its footing. The title itself, and indeed the premise, being based on the 1966 James Goldman play Lion in Winter, which does depict a family reunion with King Henry II and his court, but this version, Lionesses in Winter, giving more input and agency to the female characters, notably Eleanor and Alice, and of course with a female Doctor and a female companion. And it becomes a really interesting time-hopping story going back through Eleanor's personal history and really depicting and breaking down the grief of this family who have lost multiple children quite early in their lives. And the idea here is that Prince Philip is their deceased young Philip from another dimension, but because it was like a mirror dimension, he's grown up linearly and separately from everybody else in this other dimension, and now he's coming through. And I thought that was a really interesting and fascinating idea, how Alice apparently had an imaginary friend, but no, it was a young Prince Philip on the other side of the mirror. Really effective ideas. It feels like it's a little bit cribbing notes from It Takes You Away, the Series 11 story, and while I don't think Lionesses in Winter is as good as It Takes You Away, there's still some really great ideas here. I actually imagine Lionesses in Winter being a very hard listen for people or couples who have lost children. I'm kind of surprised that this story didn't come with a content warning at the beginning of it. And you've got these great visuals as Philip makes his way into our dimension of the universe dying around this figure who wasn't meant to survive on this side of the looking glass. The stench of decay, the crumbling of the castle grounds, really evocative imagery here, with an ending that leaves it kind of ambiguous as to how Philip was able to make his way to the other side, but I think it's setting up a potential villain or a potential story thread for future 13th Doctor adventures. Lionesses in Winter is really brisk. Even with the opening theme music and the ending credits, it only clocks clocks in at around 48 minutes, which is standard for a 13th Doctor televised story, but for a Big Finish adventure, that's not the standard. So despite dealing with these really heavy themes and these really heavy ideas, it does feel like Lionesses in Winter is in quite a rush to get to the finish line, which I think is a bit of a shame. It makes Lionesses in Winter a pretty cozy winterly Christmas story, but I don't think there's too much more here to chew on for you to remember it when you get to January. Also, and I acknowledge that this is a bit of a personal nitpick, while I love Joe Kramer's music for the 13th Doctor adventures so far, I wish that we had a more defined 13th Doctor theme, kind of like how the 9th Doctor had one almost immediately out of the gate with his adventures. I don't know, maybe we've been a bit spoiled with the 9th Doctor adventures theme, but I don't know, I really want Joe Kramer to put his stamp properly on the 13th Doctor adventures, and I don't feel like he's done that quite yet. But yeah, Lionesses in Winter was an okay Christmas story. I think the cast were really strong. Kevin Matherin as King Henry II and Deborah Baker as Eleanor, those two are really great together. They both had really strong chemistry considering the circumstances of the characters. And when it comes to the next 13th Doctor adventure coming out in January 2026, we've got Ride or Die written by Roshana Patel, which I'm really looking forward to. But that's my review of the 13th Doctor adventures Lionesses in Winter. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section below, and also be sure to subscribe for more Doctor Who Big Finish reviews, hit the like button, all that good stuff, and folks, I'll see you all next time.